Good morning. In the last lab, we discussed about some of the commands, statements, DDL statement and DML statement. Now you know how to create a table with the integrity constraints like null, not null, and primary key. Primary key and check constraints. Now, check constraint is a constraint where we want to restrict values. For instance, the gender attribute have set of permitted values. Say for instance, it can be either male or female, right? Or as another example, you would think of a university. Let us take VIT University. We have campuses at 4 different locations, right? Maybe it's like Vellore, Chennai, and Amravati, right? Bhopal. So these are the 4 different locations that we have campus. Suppose if I design a table for storing the university detail, that campus should be any of these 4 values. No other values are permitted. So now these are just simple 4 values. We can put a condition while we design the table such that these are the permitted values. If any other values are trying to be inserted into this table, it can be denied. So for that reason, we use check constraint, right? So what we can do with check constraint is we can compare values. The value that are to be compared may be a literal value, a number value, or number based value, or a string based value. So number based value, the comparison can be greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, and so on. So these are all the value. These are the comparison operator when we compare value of an attribute with a number based values. On the other hand, if it is string based, we can use the string operations, string functions. So functions we will discuss later. But now whatever, for example, I expect a number to be stored. Say for example, registration number, it must start with the letter R. So how to ensure that start with the letter R? Okay. So what we do is we can perform a string operation which uses an operator like. A like is an operator. So for ensuring the condition that student register number must start with R, I can write a condition like this. Register number like, let me write, like R percentage. Now, this checks for the register number value, and the value should be like R percentage. So the percentage is a string operator that helps us in understanding something about the strings. So the mean for string functions, we have 2 operators. One is percentage, another one is underscore. The percentage replaces substring of length 0 or more, right? Underscore replaces exactly 1 character. Okay, so percentage, it is to represent a substring of length 0 or more, and underscore to represent exactly 1 character. So that means if I put some strings like this, I mean the string which starts with letter capital R and end with anything. Okay. For example, R is just permitted value, accepted value for this. R123, it's an accepted value. R factor is an accepted value. Research is an accepted value. This research is not an accepted value because it starts with small r. So what we say is compare a value, and the value should be, a string should be like start with R, capital R, end with anything. Okay. If I use a comparison value like percentage R, it means the string that ends with R, small r, and starts with anything. That means it can have 0 or more, a substring of length 0 or more before this R, right? For example, R is an accepted literal value here. RR is an accepted value. Okay, over is an accepted value, and so on. What about underscore? Underscore replaces exactly that single character. So if I say double underscore, what is the meaning? It can replace any string of length 2. Any string of length 2. It could be RR, it could be 1, 2, it could be OP, it could be at U, at Q, and so on. So any values, just alphanumeric characters, so not alphanumeric characters, any alphanumeric characters could be there. What are the accepted value for string? All string can be included. So if I say 3 characters long, I can use 3 underscores. 3 underscore represents 3, the string of length 3. Okay. So what I can suggest you, suppose I have a question like a register number attribute or employee ID attribute. Let me say employee ID attribute. It must permit the value which starts with E, capital E, and should be of length 4, maximum 4, or maybe like E101, something like that. So in such case, what I do is I would say emp ID, and I have to use the comparison operator like, and inside this I could give E 3 underscores. Now what is that? It is of length 4, and the first value should be E and the other value should be whatever it is you just want to give. Like this you can specify emp ID like operator we can use to verify this. What is the reason we cannot use equal to, like in other where conditions that we have seen? Actually, equal to, if I use equal to, that compares the exact literal value. This is emp ID. Equal to means this looks for this value exactly. The literal value here is E3 underscores. This is not a string function. When I use equal to, this is not considered as a string function. This is considered as a literal value comparison. Okay. But what we try to do, actually, we try to specify that the first letter must be capital E and followed by 3 other characters. So in such case, I must use the keyword like to compare. Okay. Now let us use some of them to create a table. Okay. So let me create a table. Create table student. Then I create register number. Register number is character of 10 with the primary key, and name varchar of 30. It's a not null attribute, and I would say that gender with character of 1, and it is not null, right? And a contact number, it's a number of 10, not null. Now I want to insist that for example, for gender value permit only the value male or female. No other values are permitted. So I can use a check constraint here. Check constraint. The the format, the general syntax for check constraint is check, then inside this the attribute and the comparison operators or operator and values. This way we can use this check operator, check constraint. Now check constraint, the name of the attribute is gender, so I would use gender, and what I expect is it should be two values only. It should be two values, either M or F. Okay, so I can specify this as a set. So for set operation, I use an operator in and not in. I mentioned it in the other class. I can use either in or not in. In a set of value, what I would suggest is either it could be M or F. Now if I need, I can use smalls also. So this ensures that for a gender attribute of this table, while you try to insert a value, that value should be either M, capital M, or capital F, or small m or small f. No other values are permitted. This is what we ensure to this check constraint. And one more check constraint let us include for register number attribute if need. Okay, so register number, I want my register number to start with VIT, something like that. Now in such case, what I do, I write register number like inside register number inside quotes VIT. It may be anything else. I may give a percentage or underscores, whatever it is, appropriate thing I can use. So now what it says, your register number value must start with VIT in it, right? Okay. So let us see how it reacts. When I create an actual table, register number, I make it character of pin with the primary key. It's a constraint. Then name, it's a varchar of 30, not null. Then gender is character of 1, not null. Then contact number of 10, not null. Now I'd like to put the constraint check gender in M, comma F. Only I expect capital M or capital F to be included. Then another check constraint to ensure that the register number should look like IT percentage. This is what I want to ensure in this case, and this is the close of this table, right? I just close this table. Now the table is created. This table is created, so you could use this describe statement as a table name to see the structure. These constraints are not visible at present. The primary key, the check constraints and so on are not visible. But while I try to insert a record into the table, they are taking into account. So insert into XYZ values of, so first one is name, register number. I try to insert some register number 1, 2, 3, 4. You see what happens. I insert a name, I insert a gender, something which is not. So I try to insert female, but in small case. But what is the condition says, we have to include a capital F, but we try with some other value, right? So I put an insertion. See, check constraint violated. So what is the check constraint? Check constraint is the constraint which we have generated. So which check constraint violated? Actually both check constraints violated, but it shows the first one. What we insist is it must start with the value VIT and could be end with anything of length 10, but we have given just numbers, so it's violated. So this is the name of the constraint created. Okay, so while I create this table, the check constraints will be stored separately with a name, automatically generated ID. It's stored somewhere, right? Now we'll try to insert the value with proper information. VIT, it must start with VIT. and it must be either capital F or capital M. So like this. Now you see the record is accepted. Record is accepted. So this is a integrity constraint. So check constraint is an integrity constraint. It accepts a value as per the condition specified as part of table definition. In this table definition, we try to insert some conditions and it works according to those conditions. Right? Okay. Now, when you look into this error, check constraint violated, and it specified system.sys_c007048. So what is this? This is the name for the check constraint created on register number. How do we understand that? It's very difficult because it is system generated. System generates this constraint as a separate constraint, and it gives a name, assign the names to it. Okay. So what can we do? Can we allocate a name for that? Yes, we can allocate a name for that constraint as well. So for any constraint, if you want to create, we can use using the constraint keyword. Sorry. Constraint keyword. So what is a constraint keyword syntax? I have to use the keyword constraint. I give a name, constraint name. Then I can use actual constraints. Here we have used a gender constraint on gender, and instead of, you see here how many check constraints we have used. We have used 2 different check constraints. So the problem is, suppose if I want to alter my table by removing this constraint alone, not actual table, I want to remove this constraint alone, then what will I do? I have to find the name of this constraint and remove it. The name of the constraint and you remove it. Now we have access to our database because we are the administrators. We have installed our database in our own machine. But in reality, we don't know what is the name of this one. In such case, how do we identify what is the name of that particular thing? So in such case, I need to create this constraint with a name. Very simple. This constraint with a name. What I do is, I'm going to do the same thing. But now I'm going to include a name for it. So what will I do? First thing, constraint. So I'll go with constraint. Then I give a constraint name. So let me check gender, something like this. Now actual constraint. Okay, so constraint chk gen, then chk gender. Like this, here also I can give a name for this so that we can easily remember that. So I write constraint chk rno check, something like this. So this will easy for us to remember the name of the constraint so that we can process it later. So what I try to do here is, you see, create table ABCD with an attribute RNO, character of 10. I'm just simply creating a table, name varchar of 20, gender character of 1, and contact is not needed now. Just let me go with the constraint. So I put a constraint. I give a constraint name check gen, for instance. Then the constraint is check constraint gender in maybe like male, comma female. I give like that. Then I put one more constraint, chk underscore rno check rno like vit percentage. Right? Now this will create a table with all these things. Now if I try to insert a record, insert a value, insert into ABCD values of I insist a wrong value here, AB Then here also I give it a wrong value, maybe like male. That's all. 3 attributes. Now I insert. Now you see this one. Check constraint violated. What is the check constraint violated? CHK underscore RNO. The name of the constraint that we have shared here is a CHK underscore RNO gets violated. So this shows clearly. Suppose if I make that is right, I made 2 mistakes in the statement. You see now, the second one as well. Male, check generation, gender is violated because I accepted only value small f and small m, not capital M. So it shows violated. Now if I make into that, then it accepts the record into the table. Okay, so this is regarding the constraints, check constraints, and a constraint name. Okay, and constraint name, this particular utility is helpful when we try to have many such things. We have many such constraints of similar type. So for example, a table can have any number of check constraints, and a table can have any number of foreign keys. In such cases, we are going to use these check constraints. We are going to use these constraints and constraint name, right?